We're busting ours to kick yours.
That's big time.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Oh, did he belt that one?
Intensity is not a perfume.
It was a no-doubter.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are up in the bird's nest here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. I'm Brendan Mortensen alongside Annie Claff, who I can almost see with a whiteboard in the middle. If you're tuning in live on our Facebook and YouTube channels, you will see that we have another whiteboard episode, which is very exciting. And even more exciting is the fact that opening day is tomorrow. If you couldn't tell by the general stress and tiredness of my face, opening day just 24 hours away.
I know, it really flew by, as it always does the offseason, especially this one, because
Yeah.
there was a lot that the Orioles front office had to accomplish, and I'd say they did a pretty darn good job this offseason. And we had the media tour yesterday of Oriole Park, and it was so fun to kind of see all the new improvements around the park.
The scoreboard is huge. The speakers
Massive,
are really loud.
Actually.
Yeah.
If you haven't caught on, Brendan is mimicking my caption of my...
Listen, I liked the caption. It's only our producer, Bobby Blanco, who didn't like the caption, which is not true at all. I'm making that up. Bobby doesn't have a mic to defend himself,
Yeah.
so it's easy
You're
to
trying to throw him
out
under the
slander.
bus.
I am.
But yeah, the speaker system, it's
Is
different.
new. It's loud.
It's different from in the warehouse because it's like, I think there's a little bit of an echo from where we are, our office, but actually sitting down there in the Truist, or right in front of the Truist Club, listening to the 900 new speakers around the ballpark was actually pretty cool.
They are loud. No, they sound great.
Yeah, they did.
Everybody's going to really enjoy the upgrades to the ballpark. Plenty of places around, too, where if you want to get inside for a little bit during the summer months, have a drink, watch the game out the window, a lot of cool places to do that as well. So I think fans are really going to have a good time at Camden Yards, and hopefully they're going to have a great time watching a good baseball team. We're going to get into all of that today. As you can see on the whiteboard, if you are watching us even after the fact on our YouTube channel, we like it when you do that too, but it's even better when you're following along with us live and can comment along. You can see that we have some superlatives that we are going to hand out for the season, from everything from the most valuable Oriole to the most valuable prospect to maybe the first month that Craig Albertez gets ejected. We're going to be handing out all sorts of superlatives. But first, Annie, this is a kind of funny time to be going live because we're about an hour before the Orioles will officially announce their opening day roster. And so we are giving our final roster predictions here. By the time that you are listening to this, we could be incorrect, but I think we have a pretty good sense of how this roster is going to fill out. Before we get to that discussion specifically, I want to talk about the biggest roster move that has been made over the past few weeks, and that's the optioning of Dean Kramer to AAA Norfolk.
Oh, yeah. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah, that was kind of the big news. I've seen some takes thrown out of, this is, Dean Kramer's a AAA pitcher. No, he's not. You're wrong.
Right.
Dean Kramer is a very solid big league pitcher among qualified starters last year. Dean Kramer was 35th in baseball in ERA, ahead of guys like Sonny Gray, who is considered to be one of the better pitchers in the American League East. So if your take is that Dean Kramer deserves to be in AAA Norfolk, you're incorrect. Dean Kramer is a big league pitcher. For the last 4 seasons, it's been averaging about 27 starts, an ERA under 4. This is a really good arm. It's just a result of the fact that the offseason has gone pretty much as well as you could have hoped from a starting rotation standpoint, where everybody is healthy and ready to go. And Dean Kramer was just really the only option to get options to AAA Norfolk if you weren't going to start the season with a 6-man rotation.
Probably the best the offseason has gone health-wise for a rotation in the Mike Elias era. Also,
say so.
Probably the best rotation under Mike Elias that he's been able to formulate. And I think my only takeaway of the Dean Kramer option, of course, obviously it's a bummer because he has been so consistent, aside from the month of April and March, but which we'll probably hit on. Those splits are very drastic, and maybe having him in AAA to start the season, where his career split for April and March is a 6.24 ERA. Going into May, that's a 3.62, so almost cut in half. maybe that solves itself out with him starting in AAA Norfolk. But my main takeaway of Dean Kramer getting optioned down is just look at how good the competition was in the rotation itself. You had Zach Eflin, who was on the bubble health-wise after having major back surgery in August. You didn't know if he was going to come back, if they were going to do a 6-man rotation, if he was going to start with a rehab stint or something. And then he just went lights out in spring training and looked as if he never had a back problem in the first place. So it just goes to show that if Dean Kramer is your last resort to send down to AAA, that's a pretty good rotation to start the year.
Yeah, you're in a really good spot. I don't think you have to look further than the fact that Zach Eflin was your opening day starter a season ago, and he is now your number 5 starter. And there was some question about Eflin. Would he be healthy enough to start the season in the rotation? And then his last spring start, he goes 5 1/3, 7 Ks, no earned against the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
So yes, that guy is healthy enough to be in the starting rotation.
And Kramer was your 3rd in the rotation last year, and now you push him down to AAA.
And now he's your number 6, as it seems. So this really just came down to an option game for the Baltimore Orioles. You couldn't really go to a 6-man rotation at this point in the season because there are so many off days that it doesn't really make sense to go with 6. You're hindering your bullpen at that point, which if you have a 6-man rotation, you can only have 7 guys in the bullpen. With that many off days, it doesn't make sense to give guys in the starting rotation that many days off in between their starts. So a 6-man rotation is only lengthening those starts out, which doesn't make sense at this point. So if the conclusion you come to is that you're not going to go with a 6-man rotation to start the year, then you go to, okay, is Zach Eflin healthy enough to be in the rotation? And the answer was yes, based on his last outing. And then you go to, okay, what do we do now? And from there, it's who has options. There were 3 members of the starting rotation with options remaining. Dean Kramer, of course, was one of them. The other 2 guys were Kyle Bradish, who is starting the 2nd game of the season and you are not optioning, and Shane Baz, who is starting the 3rd game of the season and you are not optioning. Trevor Rogers, of course, starting opening day. You're not optioning him to begin with, but he doesn't have any options remaining anyway, so you couldn't if you wanted to. And then Chris Bassett and Zach Eflin, who are starting the 4th and 5th games of the season, they don't have any options. So it was either you option Dean Kramer, Kyle Bradish, or Shane Baz. You're not optioning the guys starting the 2nd and 3rd games of the season, so it's Dean Kramer. Yeah,
I mean, we just can't really stress enough how important it is to have Dean Kramer as your first depth rotation piece in AAA, as opposed to, and no hate to him at all, but left-hander Cade Povich would have been your next kind of starting rotation depth in AAA. And if Dean Kramer is kind of a step ahead of that in between like boundaries, if there's an injury or something, or if you just want to go to 6-man rotation after you have not that many off days in the month of April or May or whatnot, and he is just as good in AAA as you thought he would be, then you'd still have a little bit more of a buffer in terms of your depth pieces.
Yeah, make no mistake. I think you feel good about Cade Povich as your
100%.
number 7, but you feel unbelievable about Dean Kramer as your number 6.
Right.
This is an established big leaguer who, like I mentioned off the top, was 35th in ERA among qualified starters last year, ahead of guys like Sonny Gray, Luis Severino, Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen. This is a really good arm, and you feel great about him. And again, you are going to need Dean Kramer this year. We have talked about it all off season long that you are not going to get through a full season with just 5 guys in your rotation. I wouldn't be surprised at all if by the end of April the Orioles opt to go to a 6-man rotation, because there are Kyle Bradish, Zach Eflin type of injuries that you want to be aware of. You don't want to push Kyle Bradish to 32 starts this year. You want to make sure that he is built up in a responsible way. Zach Eflin is coming off of major back surgery, did not throw a ton of innings last year. You want to make sure that he is built up in a responsible way. So I still think Dean Kramer makes 20-plus starts this season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I genuinely think it could just be a March-April type of thing.
I agree. And like you said, maybe those April struggles are out of the way in AAA Norfolk, and by the time that he gets up to the big leagues, it's just the really good Dean Kramer that we have been accustomed to.
And the way that you can't predict any other injuries with the starting rotation, it could just be a 5-man, and Dean Kramer is in that, barring another injury.
Yeah, you
that
hope
comes
there's
out of
not
the
injuries,
woodworks.
but it always happens.
Right.
You're going to need Dean Kramer this season. So Kramer gets optioned.
Yep.
And it was definitely a surprise, but the more you get into it, the more that it makes sense. Let's talk about the roster as a whole. We're about an hour away from rosters becoming official, so we will get our final takes out of the way here. The roster, I don't think, is 100% set in my mind, but it's really gosh darn close. We'll start on the position player side. I think there are 10 absolute locks. Adley Rutschman, Samuel Basayo, Pete Alonso, Ryan Mountcastle, Blaze Alexander, Kobe Mayo, Gunnar Henderson, Taylor Ward, Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill. One more absolute lock, assuming health, is Dylan Beavers. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he does not need to start the year on the injured list. He was scratched with some leg, quad, soreness, tightness, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully he will be back and ready to go. If he is also a lock. That brings me up to 11. Any disagreements there, Annie?
No.
Okay. So that brings us to the final two position players. I don't think he's a lock, but I would be very, very surprised if Jeremiah Jackson does not make this team, especially given the injuries to Jackson Holliday and Jordan Westberg and the fact that Jeremiah Jackson can play both second base and third base. The fact that he was just good at the big leagues last season, had a good spring training. I don't think he's done anything but prove that he should be at the big league level. And I think that's where he'll be. Yeah,
agree, especially because of the injuries to Jordan Westberg and Jackson Holliday earlier this season and the way that things have shaken out in terms of the roster competition and infield positioning throughout spring. Like before, I knew I wanted Jeremiah Jackson on the opening day roster because of what he did last year and just coming up and debuting and really proving himself right away on offense and defense. Of course, there's still more to prove on both sides of the ball, but then the Jordan Westberg and Jackson Holliday injuries came through. You got Blaze Alexander. Kobe Mayo had a more solidified position because before it was, okay, between Kobe Mayo and Jeremiah Jackson, who makes this opening day roster? But now with some more solidified spots for Kobe Mayo and Jeremiah Jackson too in the infield or outfield, I think it feels a lot more of a lock, and that's just the way that things have shaken out for him in spring.
He's just a good player.
Yeah.
Craig Albernez speaks very highly of Jeremiah Jackson. He's a big versatility.
He loves versatility.
Yeah, that's big from his days in Cleveland. That's something we've talked about on past podcasts as well, and Jeremiah Jackson absolutely brings that. So that brings us to the 13th position player, where I think it's Leody Taveras. He is on the roster already. He is on a big league deal. I think it's probably between Taveras and Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson, very versatile player as well, can play pretty much anywhere in the infield and either corner outfield spot. Was really solid for Philly up at the big league level 2 seasons ago, kind of struggled in 2025. He was kind of a sleeper candidate at the beginning of the offseason, and he has gained a lot of momentum with a good spring training and the fact that he can play everywhere on the diamond. I think the fact that Leody Taveras can play a quality defensive center field as a switch hitter probably wins out, and the fact that he's on the big league roster already.
Can you read through your 11? Because I think my numbers are off. Like I have 12 with Leody in it.
Adley, Basayo, Alonso, Mountcastle, Blaze Alexander, Kobe Mayo, Gunnar Henderson, Taylor Ward, Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill makes 10. Okay. Dylan Beavers, assuming health for me, makes 11. Jeremiah Jackson makes 12. I think Leody Taveras probably makes 13.
Yeah, I was missing one.
Oh no,
in my numbers.
Don't say who. Don't want to out him like that.
I'm not going to say who.
So I think it's Taveras for me. That's the 13th guy, but I could see the versatility of Weston Wilson really playing a factor there. I think it's a tough decision, but like I said, I think that the center field defense, the switch hitting ability is the separator.
I agree, and I think that it's felt like Leody Taveras ever since, it was still a major league contract this offseason, and I think that for him, it's a little bit different of a caliber than Weston Wilson. And you mentioned the switch hitting abilities, the center defense, like kind of back up to Colton Cowser, and you have Blaze Alexander as well that could play center field and the infield as well. So it might, I don't know. I just think you have more infield options between Kobe Mayo, Jeremiah Jackson, Blaze Alexander to be able to shift around than you do center field options. And I think that having Leody Taveras would help more than it would for having Weston Wilson. And if there's an injury that arises in the infield, then you kind of bring Weston Wilson up.
Yeah, I mean, Blaze Alexander can play center field, and so
played
he
it like
could
once in the spring.
He could be your backup to Colton Cowser.
Yeah.
But also, Blaze Alexander just might be your second baseman for the foreseeable future until Jackson Holliday gets back. And so it feels easier to just plop Leody Taveras in the outfield somewhere if you need him and let Blaze Alexander and Jeremiah Jackson play a lot of infield with injuries to two key pieces than it does to have Weston Wilson. Okay, he can play a corner outfield. Maybe if we shift here, maybe Dylan Beavers plays some center. It just makes a little bit more sense to have Leody Taveras there, I think.
I agree.
Pitching side. The starting rotation we know are locks. Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Chris Bassett, Zach Eflin. That is your 1 through 5. That's the rotation right there. I think there are 4 bullpen locks for me. 5 assuming health. Same sort of deal. Ryan Helsley, Tyler Wells, Yennier Cano, Dietrich Enns are my 4 bullpen locks.
Okay.
Keegan Aiken would make 5, assuming that he is healthy enough to be on the opening day roster. I think that's a little bit more of a question mark at this point than Dylan Beavers, just from the nature of the injuries. We don't know yet. We haven't got many updates on Dylan Beavers, Keegan Aiken, and Heston Kjerstad in terms of their status. We'll probably hear more from Craig Albernez this afternoon when we're able to talk to him. We did unfortunately hear on the position player front, by the way, just a real quick aside, that Luis Vasquez had a broken thumb on his right hand after getting hit by a pitch. That's a bummer. I think he was in that infield conversation. Not sure if he would have broken the roster, but a bummer for Luis Vasquez nonetheless. Anyway, back to the pitchers. 9 locks for me. Keegan Aiken, if he's healthy enough, makes 10. Probable yeses. I've got Rico Garcia.
Yep.
Grant Wolfram. Jackson Kowar.
Yep.
Jackson Kowar's got really good stuff. It's an upper 90s fastball. It's been a solid spring for him. Grant Wolfram, really good spring.
Yeah.
And then Rico Garcia looked really good down the stretch for the Orioles last year. If Keegan Aiken is healthy, that is 13 guys for me.
Yep.
If Keegan Aiken is not healthy, then I think you go to one of Albert Suarez or Yarmil Geraldo.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty with you all the way through that bullpen. I had the same. I mean, I considered Rico Garcia, Jackson Kowar, and Grant Wolfram at this point in time as locks.
I think they're pretty close to it, yeah.
And I don't know if that's being naive or not, but I just think like throughout spring they've solidified that position a lot more, and we've seen fewer people in conversation for those spots. But Keegan Aiken being healthy or not to start the opening day roster is going to be a really important conversation piece for Craig Albernaz and the pitching coaches to select another bullpen piece, because I think you had Kowar and Wolfram a little bit on the bubble throughout spring and then solidified their spots when you had Keegan Aiken healthy. But now it's a little bit different with Anthony Nunez having been optioned already or sent back to minor league camp, Cameron Foster the same way, Jose Espada. And Yarmil Geraldo seems to be sticking around with some other guys. Albert Suarez is an interesting situation too because of that reported opt-out if he doesn't make the opening day roster. And Albert Suarez has not had the best spring campaign, but he has proved himself for the Orioles in years past, specifically 2024 when Grayson Rodriguez fell to injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Albert Suarez on for that reason, just not wanting to lose him out of the org in general.
Yeah.
And I do think that he can provide some long relief, middle relief that the Orioles bullpen could use.
Yeah, if Keegan Aiken is not healthy enough to make the opening day roster, I think it's between Suarez and Geraldo, and there you're looking at what do I want out of a bullpen arm, because Albert Suarez has been a good reliever in the past for this Orioles team, but he's also been a quality starter. So if you're looking at Suarez as maybe you want a guy out of the bullpen in cleanup duty, if a starter gets hit around through 3 innings and you just want Albert Suarez to take innings 4 through 7.
Yeah, just an eater.
He can be that kind of guy. Yarmil Geraldo, I don't know if he profiles as a high leverage type of reliever at this point, but he is a shorter stint type of reliever. He's going to give you an inning. It is really good stuff for Geraldo, too. I don't want to take that away from him. But at this point, there are higher leverage arms that I think you would trust a little bit more than Yarmer Geraldo at this point in his career. So it's really just going to come down to which role the Orioles feel like they want to fill. I think Suarez also could be a short outing type of pitcher if they wanted him to be, but we've seen him throughout spring training mostly in a longer bulk inning role, so I would imagine he would probably stay there. Hopefully that's just not a discussion because Keegan Aiken is healthy enough to make this team, but if he is not, I think that's an interesting place to go.
And I don't think that this is going to play too much into the decision of the Orioles for who makes a final bullpen spot or whatnot, but Andrew Kittredge has said that his shoulder injury, he doesn't feel serious about it. He doesn't think it's going to hold him back all that much. So we could see him coming back, hopefully early. I don't know exactly what the projected timeline is for him, but hopefully you just get him back sooner rather than later. I don't think that that's going to play into this opening day roster construction, but you have to keep your fingers crossed that he comes back healthy.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but that is a good point. That's why we have not mentioned Andrew Kittredge in this conversation, because he is more than likely to start the season on the injured list. If he doesn't and makes the opening day roster somehow, then it's a different conversation, but at this point, that's the projection for him. So, as mentioned, the 5 starting rotation locks, Helsley, Wells, Cano, Enns, Keegan Aiken, if he's healthy, Garcia, Wolfram, Kowar is our prediction. And then if Aiken is not healthy, I'm going to say it's Suarez.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. That's it for the roster discussion. We will get a clear answer on that very shortly. But either way, I think the general takeaways for me, the utility pieces, it feels like there is a lot of depth there, even with the injuries to Jackson Holliday and Jordan Westberg. You feel solid about the depth, versatility of Blaze Alexander, of Jeremiah Jackson, who has had a really nice spring. Feel really solid about those guys. And then on the pitching front, I think the bullpen is a little bit TBD on what guys are really going to step up and take the reins in that bullpen. We know what Ryan Helsley can be. A lot of those other guys are a little bit of an unknown who have flashed a lot of good stuff, but the starting rotation to me is in a much, much, much better spot than it was a season ago.
It might be the highlight of the opening day roster.
I think it is, which is funny considering the conversations that it felt like fans were having all offseason long of, why didn't you get this guy? Why didn't you get this guy? Why didn't you get this guy? And then you're looking at the rotation, you're going, is that top 10 in baseball?
And I genuinely think that Chris Bassett being in that rotation, aside from anyone else they could have gotten in free agency and starting for the starting rotation, I genuinely think Chris Bassett is probably the best that they could have gotten, not necessarily for stuff or how good of a starting pitcher or front end of the rotation caliber, but genuinely for the missing piece that they have had in this clubhouse for years in leadership. It's going to be such a huge intangible to have Alonso and Chris Bassett together in there.
If there was another superlative up here for most important clubhouse edition, it might be a tie between Chris Bassett and Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
And bring back Zach Eflin, maybe. Yeah, I think is an important piece as well. But those guys are going to be very, very important. Let's get into our superlatives for the season. And not going to start with most valuable Oriole. I know it's at the top of the whiteboard, but let's save that one for last. Let's start with bounce back year.
Ooh, this one's fun.
Who is going to have the best or biggest or maybe biggest jump, however you want to define it, bounce back season for the Orioles this year?
Am I going first?
You can start it off, Annie.
Okay, I'm going to start off with my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Because, and I didn't do that for every topic, but for this one specifically, I did have 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
I said Yennier Cano.
Sure, like that.
And Zach Eflin.
Okay.
I think Zach Eflin is, like, I don't even, in my mind, think that that's a hot take. Like, I genuinely think that Zach Eflin will have a bounce back year.
Mm-hmm.
So my actual bounce back year award goes to Tyler O'Neill.
Okay.
I think that just the way that he's looked in spring, physically, said to look slimmer, he does look slimmer, and if that in any way, shape, or form contributes to staying on the field more than he has in recent seasons health-wise, then that's going to be huge for him topic number one in terms of bouncing back. Like, yes, you can bounce back performance-wise, but I think bouncing back health-wise is going to be crucial for T.O. Also, just the spring slash line is absurd. It's a 429 batting average, 478 on base percentage, 667 slugging, and a OPS over 1100. So I won't be surprised if T.O. has a bounce back year. He's also not that far removed from 31 home runs in 2024 with the Red Sox.
He looks slimmer, which by Tyler O'Neill standards, the dude is still absolutely massive. He looks different. He looks like a different hitter at this point. So I think that's a really good choice. I could absolutely see Tyler O'Neill, especially this year, in a little bit of a different role where it's possible that he is DHing some more games, that he is just trying to be on the field as much as possible. Maybe he's platooning with Dylan Beavers. There is a chance for him to be put in a really good position to succeed this year, and I could absolutely see a season in which he hits 20-plus homers and gets back to being the kind of Tyler O'Neill that the Orioles thought they were getting last year. It was a disappointing season for him. He is the first one to tell you that. He wants to have a bounce back in a big way here. Tyler O'Neill was also my choice for bounce back year, so I'm going to go with my honorable mention, which was also one of your honorable mentions.
Oh, fun.
And that is Yennier Cano.
Oh, good.
Dude is throwing strikes.
Yeah.
If you look at his in-zone rate in spring training, it is comparable to where it was during his 2023 All-Star campaign. Relievers are just volatile creatures. They have been for the entirety of baseball's history. There are very few relievers who are really, really good year after year after year after year. Sometimes there are just down seasons. And for Yennier Cano, I think he learned a lot last season. Craig Albernaz said that he's been impressed all spring training about how he's locating everything in the zone. Yes, the fastballs being in the zone is important, but the splitters are landing in the zone. He's throwing all of his pitches for strikes. And if there's someone in this bullpen that is going to step up alongside Ryan Helsley and be an absolute dude in high leverage situations, I think it is a strike throwing Yennier Cano.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited for Cano, and I think that I really wanted him to have a bounce back season last year. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way, but I genuinely, full-heartedly believe that I think he can do it this year. Also, you mentioned the in-zone rate, 0 walks in spring training in 7 innings. That's coming after a 9.6% walk rate in 2025, which was in the bottom 22% of MLB. So the in zone, the command of his pitches, and limiting walks is going to be key for him.
All right. Next superlative here. I accidentally wrote his full name. I'll change that. Let's go down the list. Let's go to best starter.
Okay. Oh, can you go first?
I can go first.
This one I
there
was
are
really
a few
torn.
different candidates for this. Honorable mention to me goes to Shane Baz.
Okay.
And I think my pick is going to be Kyle Bradish.
Ooh, okay.
I know that he may not get 30-plus starts this season, but the stuff is just so good. Kyle Bradish looked dominant coming back last season from Tommy John surgery. There is no sign of decline for this guy. He knows how to spin the heck out of the baseball. His stuff is nasty. I don't see a world where a healthy Kyle Bradish is not the best starting pitcher on this team, and that is just a testament to Kyle Bradish. It's nothing against Trevor Rogers. It's nothing against Shane Baz or Chris Bassett or Zach Eflin. Kyle Bradish just has an upside as a starting pitcher that very few guys in baseball do.
And we've seen it. We've seen flashes of it throughout his injuries before that TJ surgery, and it just, he hasn't had the best of luck to be able to showcase it. Similarly to Shane Baz, who had pretty much the same deal before with injuries, and he's starting to work back and be able to showcase his upside. But Kyle Bradish, this could be the year for him. I'm glad that you mentioned all 3 of those guys, because I really think that you could put all 3 of them and throw a dart for this category and say, okay, that's whoever it lands on is going to be the best starter for this year.
I agree. It could be any of the 3.
So with that,
throw a dart.
With that, I'm going to throw a dart. Well, it's not really throwing a dart, but I had Trevor Rogers in terms of just everything he did last year.
Yeah.
I think he'll obviously come back to earth a little bit after a 181 ERA, but I don't think it's going to be by much the way that he's looked in spring and the way he's really matured and focused on that mental aspect of the game. However, I did have Shane Baz as my number one.
Yep.
Again, like you said, no hate to Rogers or Bradish or anything, and it probably might contradict with one of my answers for another superlative, but who cares? I said Shane Baz because durability-wise, he put up 31 starts last year in his first full season back from Tommy John. Hopefully he can do that again this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he did. Stuff-wise, he added a slider by using a cutter grip to help with his command, and also a two-seamer, apparently, according to Andy Koska of the Baltimore Banner. And then changes-wise, he's not pitching in a spring training ballpark like George M. Steinbrenner Field this year. He's pitching in Camden Yards, a real ballpark. I'm really excited to see, not real ballpark, a professional Major League Baseball.
It was a minor league ballpark. It
Right.
has the same dimensions as Yankee Stadium, except Yankee Stadium is in New York, and that stadium is in Florida.
Where the ball just flies.
Makes a little bit of a difference.
So I think that Shane Baz is actually going to finally reach that ceiling season.
Yeah, can I just piggyback off of this and real quick
Yes,
to
of
go
course.
to my breakout star candidate? I'm just going to write it down. It's going to be Shane Baz.
Okay, cool.
That is my breakout star for the season. I think Shane Baz gets Cy Young votes this year. This is a former number 12 overall prospect in baseball. Oh, you've got him for breakout star.
Oh, no. Sorry, that was a mistake.
You meant him for best starter. This is a former number 12 prospect in baseball. The stuff is absolutely electric. His four-seam fastball is going to sit 96, 97, and when he wants to, he can rear up and throw it 99, 100, as he did multiple times on the radar gun last year. The knuckle curve looked really good in that exhibition against the Nats on Monday. He was generating a ton of whiffs with it. And I think the move to Camden Yards, playing away from Steinbrenner, his ERA on the road last year was good, and it was his first full season coming off of Tommy John. I think last year may have been the most significant season of his career based on the fact that he came back from injury, made 30 starts, threw a bunch of innings. It was great. I think this is the first year that we see that significance health-wise paired with just the immense talent.
Yeah, it's just like he can build upon being durable and coming back from injury last season. I'm glad you corrected me because he's not my breakout star, but I'm happy that you shouted him out for your breakout star. Also,
yeah, I just wanted to jump there.
Also,
on it.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind if I should really say this, but in terms of
that's always a good way to start.
No, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because obviously it was a big bummer losing Grayson Rodriguez this offseason because he had a similar profile to Shane Baz, or was a former first-round draft pick. He was kind of the face of the franchise for early on draft picks as a pitcher in recent Orioles years, and you were hoping to get a lot out of him, but you just didn't because of injury concerns, unfortunately. And I wish the best for him moving forward with the Angels, and with some issues that may have arisen with him injury-wise with the Angels. But in terms of this offseason, giving up Grayson Rodriguez and getting one Taylor Ward, a power hitter in this lineup from the right side of the plate, and two, Shane Baz, another starting pitcher with similar profile that's come back from injury and proved himself more and is reaching that full potential and also has team control. You really, really feel good about the way that offseason kind of trickled down.
Yeah, you obviously wish the best for Grayson Rodriguez. He still has a long way ahead of him in his big league career.
Right.
It's a tough break to hear that he is most likely starting the season on the injured list and has some more injury concerns popping up. That is obviously something that the Orioles were concerned about going into the year. And you hate to say, oh, yeah, they made the right decision because this guy's hurt, and you don't want to judge a trade based on that, but these were the obvious concerns with Grayson Rodriguez. Do want to shout out a few comments on YouTube and Facebook about Shane Baz real quick before we move on. Our guy Walberlin on YouTube saying that I was on the third base side for the Monday exhibition. The knuckle curve was a hammer. Insane weapon. Yeah. Really, really good weapon for Shane Baz. And then on Facebook, Steven, tuning in from Greensboro, North Carolina. Hi, Steven, saying that Baz will win 18 games.
Ooh.
That's a big old prediction, and I don't know if I'm going to go with 18 games, but I still think Shane Baz is my breakout star.
Yeah, no, that's
so,
awesome.
Annie, I have Baz in that category.
Okay.
Who is your breakout star?
I have Grant Wolfram
Nice.
which I don't know if he really qualifies for this category. I think he does.
Yeah, he does.
I just think that he hasn't necessarily proved himself yet at the big leagues. It's only one major league season. He's 29 years old, drafted in the 18th round of the 2018 draft, posted 6 scoreless innings in spring with a 667 whip and 15 strikeouts per 9 innings. I think that Wolfram, obviously being a lefty too, that the Orioles need in the bullpen, is going to be a dude to come out of this relief group.
You are spoiling one of my 3
no.
hot takes, which is that I think Grant Wolfram becomes a really, really trusted high-leverage reliever this year. So I am totally on board with you with Grant Wolfram as a breakout star. He is a big, tall lefty who throws hard. He throws good stuff. That pitch gets on you quick from Grant Wolfram. So I am 100% on board with this take. Guess that transitions us to best reliever. I'll have you fill out this category first, Annie. Is Grant Wolfram your superlative winner for best reliever, or is that somebody else?
No, it is somebody else, and it is who they went out and grabbed this offseason. Sorry if it's basic, but I do have Ryan Helsley.
Some of these answers are going to be basic. Sometimes
Right.
the superlative goes to the person that you just know it should go to, and that's Ryan Helsley.
Yeah, it's going to Hell's Bells for me. Could also be considered to have for one of the other options for a bounce back year after what happened after he was traded to the Mets last season. But this is your closer. Plus, he added a splitter this offseason to provide some opposite horizontal break from his traditional fastball slider combo. I think that an offseason with a new team, fresh pitching coach minds, he's going to fix the pitch tipping issues that we saw last year. He's in a different environment than a big market in New York City. I just think it's going to be a completely different scenario from the end of last season. And he's had really phenomenal seasons in the past. Like, he is a traditional closer, and he is going to be the best reliever, in my opinion, to fill the shoes of Felix Bautista.
2022 to 2024, Ryan Helsley had a sub-2 ERA and made the All-Star team 2 out of 3 years. And it was a down season for him last year in New York, but he was still good in the first half of the year with St. Louis. It was an ERA of 3.
Yeah, so, and wasn't it like led major leagues in saves one of those seasons
he did.
Too?
Yep, and the dude throws gas. He threw 102 miles an hour 20 times last season, 20-plus times. So, yes, it's the obvious choice to say that Ryan Helsley is going to be the best reliever on this team. I think it's also probably the right choice to say that Ryan Helsley is going to be the best reliever on this team. So that's where I'm going as well. We'll jump to another category here. Let's go with flashiest defense.
Ooh, this one's fun.
Yeah.
I've had 2 answers that I couldn't decide between, but I'm going to decide one on the spot. I'll mention my honorable mention just so that it's on the record. You know I was thinking him. Enrique Bradfield Jr., because I do think he's going to get promoted this year to the big leagues. You and I have both talked about that on previous podcasts. He's a traditional, like a surefire, major league ready center fielder.
He's going to be so good
going
defensively.
To be so good. I think the only question marks right now that he's got to fine tune are the bat. And even then, if he just gets on base, like you tweeted recently of how good
his 400 on base percentage.
Ridiculous.
He had 1 hit in spring training, so obviously the batting average didn't look good, but that was just because he kept walking.
Yeah.
He had 6 walks and 1 strikeout.
No, it's insane. And I think that you are going to have Enrique Bradfield Jr. at some point this season to be someone to get on base, draw a walk. The speed on the base paths is ridiculous, and then the defense is going to be absurd. So he's my honorable mention, but I have Colton Cowser as flashiest defense. It's the first full season for Cowser at his natural position in center field. We've seen what he can do in the past as a corner outfielder, almost probably should have been AL Rookie of the Year in 2024 with that corner outfield spot. He was in the top 4% of MLB in outs above average and arm strength in 2024. So I'm just excited to see what he can do starting clean slate in center field.
Yeah, me too. Colton Cowser, Enrique Bradfield Jr. were 2 of my honorable mentions, as was Gunnar Henderson, who is capable of making some really flashy plays at shortstop. I'm going a little bit off the beaten path here for my flashiest defense. I'm going to go with Blaze Alexander. Really good athlete. We saw some super flashy plays from him a season ago. He's going to be playing all over the diamond. Could see him at second base somewhere on the left side of the infield, left field, center field, right field. He's going to have the chance to do a whole bunch of stuff defensively, and just a really good athlete. So I'm going to go with Blaze Alexander.
Yeah, I love that he ends up on this board. I was trying to figure out ways to throw him into one of these superlatives because I do think he deserves to be mentioned. Also, he hasn't really had a season with the Diamondbacks or at all in his career because it's only been 2 major league seasons where he's played more than 75 games. So I think that when you have Blaze Alexander more than likely starting this year as your everyday second baseman with Jackson Holliday out with injury or until how long it takes for Holliday to come back, then Blaze Alexander is going to have all the more opportunity to prove some flashy web gems.
I'd be surprised if he plays fewer than 80 games this season.
Me too.
He can do everything. He can play any position on the diamond that you need him to, and that is a super valuable piece to have on the bench.
Also, even when you do get Holliday back, the power is not going to be at full strength. We know that about the hamate bone surgery archetype, but when Holliday comes back, still expect to see Blaze Alexander playing the majority of defensive options.
Yes. All right. We're getting closer to the big boy superlatives here. Let's go with most home runs. I think this is probably also an obvious answer, but it's Pete Alonso.
Yeah, that's
right.
I
mean, yeah, we both have to say Pete Alonso. It's at least 34 home runs in each full season of Pete Alonso's career. There's just no getting around it. I mean, we could throw out some big numbers that we think Pete Alonso could hit home run-wise this year, and I don't think any of them would be insane. He's hit over 50 in a season in his career before. So if you're saying anybody other than Pete Alonso, his rookie year,
yeah,
he hit 50-plus homers. So if you're saying anybody else for most homers on this team, I think Taylor Ward has an argument. I think Gunnar Henderson has an argument in a fully healthy season where we've seen him challenge 40 home runs, but Pete Alonso challenges 40 home runs on a yearly basis. That's what he does.
Yeah, and you did say it's an easy one, but I did have kind of a hard time with some of these offensive superlatives because you did go out this offseason and obtain a number of power bats. You also have somebody in Samuel Basayo who is getting his first full season as a big league player, but it is just an obvious one. It's Pete Alonso.
Yeah, it's Pete Alonso.
Plus, also, now having signed like a major contract with a new club, I think that we can expect to see a lot more confidence and leadership from him, even more than before. He is the big fish in a small pond, so to speak. Before he was a big fish in a big pond, but now he's an even bigger fish in a small pond here in Baltimore. So I think that could mean a lot more for him.
Yeah, small pond with a lot of big fish in it, to be fair, but it's not the same market size as New York, obviously. It's a very different situation for Pete Alonso, and he is the clear leader of this team. Obviously, there are core guys like Gunnar Henderson, like Adley Rutschman, who have been here, put up outstanding seasons, but Pete Alonso has been doing that for a long time. He brings playoff experience. He brings the veteran leadership. He's the dude. He is one of the faces of this franchise at this point, and the season hasn't even started yet. Highest OPS, it's Pete Alonso for me.
I said Gunnar Henderson.
Okay, yeah. Look, Pete
I'm
Alonso.
glad we have a little bit difference there.
Me too. Pete Alonso, 871 OPS last year, and his underlying metrics suggest that could have been even better. He is 90-plus percentile in pretty much all of the important hitting categories from a season ago. His StatCast page is ridiculous. Things outside of the strikeout rate and the walk rate, but just how hard he hits the baseball on a consistent basis. It always finds a barrel. I thought about Gunnar as well. He is obviously my honorable mention. I think of the guys that could have the highest OPS, it's either Gunnar or Pete Alonso, but just the season that Alonso put up in 2025, the underlying metrics that support it. Would it surprise me if Pete Alonso has an OPS that starts with a 9? No, it really wouldn't.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if either Alonso or Gunnar Henderson had an OPS that started with a 9. This is kind of what I was saying when I had a tough time with some of these offensive ones deciding, and it came down pretty much to Gunnar and Pete Alonso for most of them. Also because you would think that if I put somebody down with most home runs, that it would also be kind of uniform with highest OPS. But here, I decided to throw Gunnar Henderson in just because he has had the highest team OPS in the last 3 seasons. It's going to be a toss-up between who it is, but I also wanted to note his World Baseball Classic numbers again. It was a 400 batting average, a 400 on-base percentage, 867 slugging, and a 1267 OPS.
Those are really good. I bet that guy started all the time.
Oh, yeah, you would think. We're never going to let that down, are we?
No.
And
I don't want to.
I don't want to either. And the average exit velocity, and I think I forget how many batted ball events, maybe it was like 14, but it was an average of 101 or more than 101 miles per hour off the bat. And 11 of his 14 batted ball events were like well over 100 miles per hour.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an OPS just shy of 900 2 seasons ago. And I think a lot of folks are anticipating with a healthy Gunnar Henderson that he gets back to being that kind of player. And in that season, he put up 9 Baseball Reference WAR, which is absolutely ridiculous. So Gunnar Henderson, I think, is a good choice there for highest OPS. I think it's one of the two between Gunnar and Pete Alonso. Before we get to our 4 big boy categories, let's get the fun one out of the way. Craig Albarnez, we know he's kind of a fiery guy. We've heard that a lot about the new skipper. So our final superlative on the list here before we get to our 4 big-time superlatives of most valuable Oriole, most valuable prospect, X factors, and which one am I forgetting? All-stars. Which month?
And prospect. We have that one too.
Yes, that was among my 4.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, good listening skills there, Annie.
I was reading my answer.
This is a month superlative. So which month will be the first in which Craig Albarnez which month will be the one in which Craig Albarnez gets his first career ejection as a big league manager? I think it could happen. I was so tempted to put March.
I know. I gave him the benefit of the doubt a little bit and said May.
I did too. I also said
Oh, maybe
May.
you should switch. One of us should switch ours to March now.
March would be so funny. Imagine he just gets tossed tomorrow.
Do you want to switch yours to March?
I can't. I was so tempted, but I don't think
if you put
first year big league manager is going to get ejected in March.
If you put May, then I'll put April.
Okay. That feels fair.
A little one in between.
I think it's going to happen relatively soon. I gave him the benefit of the doubt that maybe in the month of April he'll be on his best behavior, and then once he gets into the flow of it a little bit more, he's going to get tossed. But he's a fiery dude. I think the players really resonate with it, and I think it's going to be effective.
Yeah.
But I think he might get tossed relatively
early.
early.
He said at the Birdland Caravan event that he cannot wait for his first ejection.
And it's going to be awesome.
I'm
he's
so
going
excited.
to do some. I hope he does something cool like kick the dirt or, maybe not throw a base, but
when Luis Vasquez was hit in the exhibition game the other day in the thumb, Brendan and I were talking about how much we love how quickly Albarnaz was out of the dugout and like rushed to home plate to check on the player. I think Albie would go to war for any of these players.
He is for the boys. That has been his motto throughout the offseason. He is going to do anything for those guys, and I think that includes being a fiery manager who's going to get tossed if he needs to, because if one of his players gets into a scuffle with an umpire, not a literal physical scuffle, but an altercation verbally, then I think Albarnez is going to be the first one out there to protect his guy. All right. 4 categories remaining. They are all big ones. MVO, most valuable prospect, X factors on the team, and all-stars. Let's go with all-stars to start. This is also one of my hot takes because I think the Orioles have 5 all-stars this season.
That would be awesome.
Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso.
Okay.
Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Ryan Helsley.
Okay.
Are my 5 Orioles all-stars.
That's pretty cool. Wow. All right. I have Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman. I think that this could be a hot take in itself, but it is not one of my 3 hot takes. I just think Adley is due for a trip back to the All-Star game, and I actually think that it could happen. There is a lot riding on him to bounce back, not defensively because he is an excellent defender and a game caller behind the dish, but I do think that he is going to bounce back offensively, and he needs to. So I think that Adley Rutschman could make it back to the All-Star game. It's a little bit difficult with some of the catchers in the American League already, but I think with his actual catching abilities and the potential to bounce back offensively, I wouldn't rule him out.
I wouldn't either.
So I have Gunnar and Adley, and then I have either Trevor Rogers or Kyle Bradish.
Okay.
I think it's so hard with the starting pitching market pool in the American League to make an all-star game as is, which is why I put either or of them. Trevor Rogers, if he played more games last season, probably should have been an all-star, but he came back from injury in late May. Kyle Bradish would not be shocked if he does the same thing this year.
Yeah, I think those are good choices. If Adley Rutschman has a bounce-back season offensively, he is so good defensively, and a bounce-back season for him offensively is back to one of the best catchers in baseball, which would absolutely put him in that all-star conversation. He is a multiple-time all-star at this still early point in his career, so I could absolutely see him getting back there. And then, yeah, Trevor Rogers or Kyle Bradish, like you said, that's going to be a crowded room pitching-wise. I have crowded it up with 3 Orioles pitchers in Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, and Ryan Helsley. It's a tough competition, but I just believe in the upside of those guys. And I'm with you. I think there is one Orioles starter, at least, that makes the All-Star team this year. Let's go to X Factor.
Which is something you couldn't have said last year, by the way.
I think that's true. I think that's probably true. Let's go to X Factor for the season. I cheated here a little bit. I do have 2 players, and they are Adley Rutschman and Colton Cowser.
Okay.
I think if those 2 guys have bounce-back seasons from a numbers perspective, from a health perspective, the ceiling of this team is unbelievably high if those 2 guys have good seasons, because I think you know what Gunnar Henderson is capable of giving you, what Pete Alonso is going to give you. Taylor Ward has been a consistent enough player over the past few years. You know what he's going to give you. I think the upside of the rotation is huge, as we have talked about. Bradish, Rogers, Baz, Eflin, Bassett. That is a really good 5. If Adley Rutschman and Colton Cowser are playing the kind of baseball that they are capable of playing, and all of a sudden those guys turn into a number 2 hitter, a number 4 hitter in your lineup, and then all of a sudden you pair them with Gunnar, with Alonso, with Taylor Ward, with Samuel Basayo in his first full big league season, with Jackson Holliday, who hopefully comes back and contributes. The ceiling of this team just goes through the roof if those 2 guys play up to their potential, and both of their potentials are all-star players.
Right.
If they put up 4 or 5 Baseball Reference WAR seasons, you would not be surprised in the slightest, because that's the amount of talent that they have. And if they play up to their potential, whew.
Yeah, and it also does make sense to slot the 2 of them in for an X Factor award position or whatever, because both of them should be seen as leaders in this clubhouse now. Obviously, they're not the type of veteran leader that you have in Chris Bassett or Pete Alonso, but Colton Cowser, Adley Rutschman are 2 of the faces of the franchise.
They're the building blocks, yeah.
Right, that should have to have a bounce-back season, and in turn, because of it's a leader in this clubhouse, a face of the franchise, would elevate the rest of the clubhouse. I went a little bit of a different direction for this, but I'm not discounting yours at all, because I thought long and hard about Adley and even Colton Cowser for this category. Mine's probably makes less sense. But I said, in the way of my reasoning, not the person, but I said Kobe Mayo, because I think that he's not at the age or leadership level as Colton Cowser, Adley Rutschman, that it's really pivotal that those 2 do well and for the rest of the clubhouse to do well. But I think that from a skill perspective and proving himself wise, Kobe Mayo, we know that the bat is there. He just really needs to put the pieces together consistently at the big leagues. And I think that given the amazing spring and last September that we saw from him, he can more than sure do so with the confidence at the plate. But the defense is going to be really important. And with the losses of Jordan Westberg and Jackson Holliday in the infield, and even Cedric Mullins in center field and in your outfield defense, it looks a little bit different than where you were going into 2025. So in terms of defensive value, I think Kobe Mayo is going to be a game changer. Like, if he can really perform and do well defensively at third base, it just elevates the defensive value of this team as a whole.
Yeah, he's an X factor in the sense, kind of a similar way to Adley and Kauser, but if Kobe Mayo is at the bottom of your lineup and all of a sudden he is hitting like he hit in September last year, then that lineup 1 through 9, where do you take a breath? It's nowhere. And if Kobe Mayo is able to find that consistency in the big league levels, is able to establish himself as your everyday third baseman until Jordan Westberg hopefully returns at some point sooner rather than later this season. Yeah, I could absolutely see him being an X factor, another guy who really raises the ceiling of this team if he reaches his ceiling of what he can be as a big league player. 2 superlatives remaining. Most valuable Oriole, most valuable prospect. Let's start with most valuable prospect.
Okay.
Have you made your decision on this yet?
Can you go
Annie?
first?
I will go first. My guy's going to be Ike Irish, Orioles' first-round pick from a season ago. Let's not forget that in our draft show last year, we take a lot of pride in the fact that we are on top of our game with who the Orioles could draft, what direction they might go in. Let's not forget that we were not considering Ike Irish as an Orioles draft pick last year because every single mock draft, every single big board had this guy as a top 10 pick in that draft. And then he falls to the Baltimore Orioles, and now he's just going to be Ike Irish. It doesn't change any of his future projection from when he was a draft-eligible player last year. Just because he fell in the draft a little bit, the dude just hits. I mean, look at his spring training. He got 5 at-bats in big league spring training, and he had 4 hits. He hit 800, 4 hits and a double for Ike Irish. Looked good in his debut last year. He was fantastic at Auburn in his junior season. An OPS close to 1,200, hit 364, 470 on base. The OPS was just shy of 600, so it wasn't an awesome day. Side is so high for him. Only struck out 37 times in 55 games. A lot of pop with the bat. He hit 19 home. A lot of offensive upside. He is a solid enough athlete to, we'll see how many games he catches in his professional career, but even if he's a corner outfielder, man, the dude just hits. And you watch his swing, too. There's not a lot of wasted movement. It is a really simple, easy approach at the plate swing-wise. Ike Irish is going to be my guy this year. I wouldn't be surprised at all if by the end of the season, nothing against Nate George, any of the guys at the top of the prospect rankings, I think Ike Irish could be the team's consensus best prospect by the end of the year.
Yeah, especially once you have Samuel Basayo and Dylan Beavers graduate from a prospect status. But it is crazy to look back at our draft show and draft prep because of how much he did fall down to the Orioles, and they got extremely lucky. It was a situation where afterwards the front office was like, I mean, he fell into our lap. How do you not take someone like Ike Irish at that pick number that you have? I think we had him at like around 11 going off the board.
Yeah,
and then he just falls like eight draft picks later. I am having a hard time with this one because you could just say like Nate George out of obvious reasons because he is such a phenomenal prospect. Similarly to Enrique Bradfield Jr. with the defense and the speed and the athleticism and also the bat from Nate George. But I'm going to go with someone a little bit less obvious, but it also kind of feels obvious.
There's no reason you can't go with a Nate George or Luis De Leon or Trey Gibson.
We're just trying to do a little bit more of like deep cuts.
Sure. Listen, we can have a deep cut if you want to have a deep cut in here.
Mine's not even a deep cut all that much. Can I do 2?
Sure, let's hear it.
I'm going to do 2. First one, Vance Honeycutt. Same one as last year that I picked, which didn't go swimmingly because he struggled in his first full professional season. But we saw what he did in spring. It was a 500 batting average, a OPS over 2,200 from Vance Honeycutt.
Pretty good.
Very good. I think that he really just needed to get the mojo back and feel confident in himself again as a baseball player. Maybe this is the year that he actually fulfills the first-round draft pick prophecy. Is a very toolsy player, as you've said in the past. So he's one of them. The other one I have, same draft class as last year, is Vahiva Aloy.
Nice.
Defense could be already major league ready. He's a shortstop. Maybe could move around the diamond. I'm not too sure about that. I'll have to double check.
He probably could. I think he has the arm strength and ability to play third base if you wanted him to, but there's also no reason to move him off of shortstop at this point.
So defense is already there. It was an 1107 OPS at Arkansas, and then a pretty good 856 OPS already in Delmarva, 2 for 4 in spring training games with no strikeouts. Obviously, it's a very small sample size, but that was one of your biggest question marks. With Vahiva Aloy, I would not be surprised if he becomes exactly as he was advertised to be as a Golden Spikes winner in 2025.
Yeah, Golden Spikes winner, best player in college baseball for a reason, and then the Orioles just ho-hum draft him at the end of the first round.
Fall into their lap.
Yeah, like why is Vahiva Aloy still there? It's somebody that we thought the Orioles could take with their first pick last year, where they end up getting Ike Irish, and then all of a sudden Vahiva Aloy just still falls to them. So he might be the best middle infielder in this Orioles system at this point. I don't know if that is a particularly hot take, but I think he could be. He's right up there with Aaron Estrada, who I think is also a candidate for that as well. Let's shout out some deep cuts. I think Aaron Estrada is not a deep cut, but he's somebody that I could see. Boston Bateman, not a deep cut either, but he could have a really, really good year. If you're a listener of the podcast, you know how highly we think of Tyson Neighbors and Anthony Nunez. Those are not deep cuts. Patrick Riley, Braxton Bragg coming off of injury. I think those two have a potential future impact as starting pitchers. Yeah, I think those are my deep cuts there. Also, Joseph Jerwa. Highest drafted pitcher in the Mike Elias era, big lefty out of Michigan State. I think he could be a guy as well. All right, final category here. This is a long podcast. We're going to run through this last superlative and then our 3 hot takes, 2 of which I've already spoiled of mine. Most valuable Oriole for me is Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, me too. That's just a given.
Look, he can put up a 9 Baseball Reference WAR season, and that's nothing against anybody else on this team by saying that there are just not a lot of guys in Major League Baseball that can do that. Gunnar Henderson, most valuable Oriole.
Yeah, I was thinking about...
He's so good.
He's the same for mine, by the way, but I was thinking about one of my hot takes could be like back to an 8+ Baseball Reference WAR season for Gunnar Henderson, but I don't think that that's a hot take. That is an aggressively lukewarm take, in my opinion. So Gunnar Henderson, most valuable Oriole, arguably could have been it last year in 2024, having played the amount of games that he did. I think it was 154 games last season. Obviously, he was going up against Trevor Rogers, who just did all that he did in 2025, which was incredible. But Gunnar Henderson plays every day, shows up at the bat or at the plate, and then also shows up on defense. So that I'm not arguing at all with.
He had a down season and a 5.5 Baseball Reference WAR. Gunnar Henderson is so good at baseball. There's really not much else you can say about that. Pete Alonso could have 50 tanks and a 900 OPS, but what Gunnar Henderson can do from a base running perspective, from a defense perspective at shortstop, it's just a separator from him. We got a question on Facebook. Do we think Gunnar Henderson could run as much as he did in the final month of last season? I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah.
He is a good enough athlete. He is a really good base stealer, as we saw with 30 stolen bases a season ago. Yeah, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't continue to steal bases. He's really good at it. So these are our superlatives, and I think they look pretty good.
Should we run through them really quickly?
Let's do it. My most valuable Oriole, Gunnar Henderson. Most valuable prospect, Ike Irish. Highest OPS and most home runs for me, I gave to Pete Alonso. Flashiest defense, Blaze Alexander. My X factors for the season, Adley Rutschman and Colton Cowser, all-stars. This was one of my hot takes for the year. I said a whopping 5. Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Ryan Helsley, breakout star Shane Baz, bounce back Yennier Cano, best starter Kyle Bradish, best reliever Ryan Helsley. In the month of Craig Albernaz's first ejection, I said May, the month of May.
All right, my superlatives for the 2026 season. Most valuable Oriole, of course, also Gunnar Henderson. Most valuable prospect was a tie between Vance Honeycutt and Vahiva Aloy. Highest OPS, Gunnar Henderson. Most home runs, Pete Alonso. Flashiest defense, Colton Cowser. X Factor was Kobe Mayo. All-Stars, I had 3, Gunnar and Adley coming back to the All-Star game. and one of Trevor Rogers or Kyle Bradish. Breakout star Grant Wolfram out of the bullpen. Bounce back year from Tyler O'Neill. Best starter Shane Boz. Best reliever Ryan Helsley. And Albie's first ejection in April.
We got through an hour of this lengthy podcast without the light turning blue, and then it finally did. All right, let's run through these hot takes quickly because we've taken up a lot of time. My first two have already been outed on this podcast. Grant Wolfram becomes a really trusted high leverage reliever was one of my hot takes, and 5 All-Stars after one last season. Gunnar, Pete, Bradish, Boz, Helsley. So my one hot take that I get to throw out, and it is a hot take, Pete Alonso, Taylor Ward, and Gunnar Henderson. Just those 3 players.
Oh, God.
Combine for 100 home runs.
Yeah, I could see it.
100 between 3 players. That's my take.
I wouldn't be shocked. That's 33 home runs per person if
Pete,
they were all split evenly.
Pete gives you 40. Gunnar gives you 30. Taylor Ward gives you 30.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Those are my
But
3
that
hot
would
takes.
be awesome if that happens.
It would be really fun. Annie?
Okay, my hot takes. Samuel Basayo is AL Rookie of the Year. He's got some stiff competition going up this season, but I think that he's going to do it. You know, maybe he will. Then I have Zach Eflin finishes with a sub 3.50 ERA.
Ooh. Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, this one may be a little bit of a stretch. Kobe Mayo finishes top 4 in team leading OPS.
Ooh. Okay. So what's your top 4? Oh, no.
In no particular order.
Okay.
Gunnar, Pete Alonso, Kobe Mayo. The last one could be between low-key Tyler O'Neill or Taylor Ward.
Okay.
That's my top 4.
I like that.
Well, I guess that would be top 5, but
yeah. But that still works.
Yeah.
All right. That was a marathon of a podcast. Thank you for sticking with us as we are previewing opening day, which is tomorrow back on MASN. Make sure you tune in for the hour-long pregame show that we will have on MASN starting at 2 o'clock. Hopefully you've been tuning in with us on all of our MASN Orioles social pages as we have been giving you behind-the-scenes looks of what the ballpark looks like with all the renovations. We have been breaking down all the biggest storylines going into the season. We've been telling you about how great the field looks, all sorts of stuff.
Brendan has been cooking on a opening day hype video that I cannot wait to see.
I really am trying to. So make sure you tune in to our MASN Orioles social pages throughout the season. We hope that you enjoyed our off-season of fun podcast. We're going to have more still once a week, every Wednesday live, 11 a.m. on our YouTube and Facebook channels, or you can catch us after the fact on our Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us here on the Bird's Nest. Big thank you to Bobby Blanco behind the scenes for producing another marathon podcast of ours, as we have had 2 over the past few weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. For Annie Claff, I'm Brendan Mortensen, and we'll catch you next time.